Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Purpose Beyond Motherhood podcast. I have Nicole here
Hey, so
and
excited.
our sweet new friend Lana that we're going to talk to today, which Nicole, I am letting you intro her because she's got some awesome things
I
going
know.
on.
And I was going to say, Lana, we forgot to talk about this before we
Or she
hit
could
record.
Yep.
But yeah, would love for you to really intro yourself because we don't want to leave anything out.
Yeah.
And you have so many
Mm-hmm.
amazing things that you are just doing just for this community. Right. And so we will let you intro you, but I'll tell a quick little backstory is didn't we meet on Instagram or did I make that up? Right.
At least 3 years ago, because I was living in the house that I thought I was going to be my baby's home to, and we sold that 3 years ago. So we've met well over 3 years ago.
Yes. And did someone connect us or we just connected? I can't remember.
I think we just saw each other,
right? Yes.
I think
and
we felt called to connect, and we DM'd, and I remember we had a couple conversations, and so here we are.
I know. So good. See, you guys, again, Instagram, social media can be a good thing, a great connector.
Yes.
We know that it could be a little wonky too, but there are good things that come out of
for sure
of social media. Well, Lana, okay, tell us just like all the things about you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just have to say thank you, and thank you to God for bringing us together, because so many times in my life when I felt alone and like I was the only one, there's been moments I get teary just thinking about it where my connections have just shown up for me, and I know it's beyond me. So I just want to say that this morning. Thank you. And about me, I live in Chicago. I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area. I met my husband when I was 35, and up until that time, I knew I wanted to be a mom, but it wasn't on the checklist. Like right when I got out of college, I was more focusing on my career opportunities, advancements, friends, and social life, and all that stuff. And I fell in love with my dentist, who turned out to be my husband.
That's amazing.
So I always tell people, you never know where you're going to meet your husband, and mine happened to be in his dental office when I was 32.
Oh my gosh.
We got married at 35, and we just, it just felt right for us to start working on a family together. He wanted to have children. I know I did too. We talked about that before marriage, which I think is something that's really important to make sure you're on the same page. And when I was 37, we finally got workup because we weren't, we never had a pregnancy test be positive. So we went and got workup, and it turned out that I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility. And that was kind of the first time in my life where I felt like I didn't have the resources and the tools to figure things out. So we started on a 7-year journey off and on through IVFs, IUIs, trying to conceive naturally, timed intercourse, the whole gamut.
Yes.
And here I found myself in my 40s, my husband also in his 40s, realizing that we just weren't going to be biological parents. We were offered the opportunity to adopt or do egg donor services. And after a lot of thought and prayer, we decided that those options weren't the right ones for us. And we found ourselves with no resources. Nobody offered us any opportunities to figure out how you can create this life that you feel connected to, how we could feel connected as a couple, because we really thought we would co-parent and, build a life with children. So there was times when I looked at us as a couple and wondered, are we going to make it? Do we have enough to keep us together? And so it was the pandemic in my realization that I had sort of, without my job, realized that I just didn't know who I was. When we were working from home and just didn't have a lot of outside interaction, I had just forgotten the person that I saw in the mirror. And that's when I realized I needed to start to make change. So that was in 2020. And then in 2021, I started my podcast called the So Now What podcast. And I founded something in 2022 called the Others Day Brunch, which maybe we can touch on later.
Yes.
And I became a certified life coach. And now I have my own book, and things are just, I feel very uplifted and blessed that my life has continued to go in a direction, even though it looks different than I thought it was going to be. in a direction where not only am I able to continue to grow as a human, I'm able to help people through their process now too. Yeah. So you asked me to tell you. That's what I told you.
Yeah, no, I just
That
thought
was
that
amazing.
it was so amazing. And I'm just so glad that you're here on the podcast because I mean, that is purpose beyond motherhood.
Totally.
You know?
Absolutely.
Is the word epitome? I feel like you are the epitome of purpose beyond motherhood. You know?
Yes.
It's just like you just took your situation, and not that it wasn't hard, not that it wasn't, you know, devastating and heartbreaking, but you took something and said, I still have a place in this world. I still have a place in the kingdom, and I'm going to serve others. I mean, come on. That makes me excited for you. Sure. Like you didn't, of course you grieved. Of course it was sad again, but I just really want to reiterate that to our listeners of just you. Just, it was beauty for ashes, you know? And so just you moving forward and persevering past that to create these beautiful resources for people and to encourage people. It is awesome. So well done. Well done, friend. Keep it up.
Yes. I mean, what an inspiring way to truly take your pain and make it such a powerful purpose. So we're proud of you. Good job.
So proud of you. I know.
I really appreciate it. And I just knew that I didn't want to live my life at 80%, that I was not put on this earth to just exist. I wanted to find an opportunity to really feel all the opportunities that were around me to live into this life and not shrink away from it, because that wasn't the person I was before infertility. I was very just joyous and happy and always seeking and looking to grow. And when that was not part of my story for those years, I knew that wasn't why I was here. And I think that we also have a lot of lack in examples. So sometimes when you look around and you don't see people without kids coming forth and telling their story and talking about the road that they've been on, it's hard to think that you can ever do it. So I think all of us here, you know, we give that opportunity to others to just say, you know, there is someone ahead of you who's been able to start to navigate this path.
Absolutely. Okay. So how many years have you been married?
We have been married 15. It'll be 16 in June.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Yeah. We had, you know, just great story. You know, I told you we met, he was my dentist and I had this huge crush on him, and I ran into him out one night at a restaurant and I was like, oh my God. But we had like the families, our parents get along. They would go on vacations together without us. It was just like this beautiful love story. And it just felt like without children, that part of our lives, I didn't know where to fill that void. And he stuck with me through all of it. And we've stuck with, you know, through each other's trials and tribulations too. So I'm very fortunate that he is my husband, and we'll make it through anything. I know that.
That's
beautiful.
I love that.
What I'm just like throwing out random questions now. How was your community around you as you were walking through this? Were they supportive of you? Were they all in your business? Were they just asking so many questions? You know, especially how you talk about just your family and your husband's family, you know, just hanging out and really just meshing so close together. You know, what was that like?
Well, I don't remember ever my mother-in-law asking about the grandbabies, because I was her only hope to be a grandmother. The other two kids had chosen to move forward without having kids. So I was like the daughter-in-law who was going to come in and save the day. And I thought that was kind of one of the things that was expected of me. But she never once put any pressure on me. I didn't really talk about my infertility with my family or in my faith community, because I didn't know anyone who had ever gone through IVF, and I didn't know if it was looked down upon within the church. And I didn't, I felt like I'd get a lot of criticism for it, but I also feel like there was a part of me that had a lot of shame that I needed assistance becoming pregnant. So I turned away from talking about it a lot. And I cocooned myself just with a few key people that I would tell what was going on. Otherwise, I didn't really bring people into the mix.
Yeah.
And I remember going to like church events and thinking, oh, I wonder if people think that my husband and I are having marital problems because we're not having kids yet. And I would kind of play these scenarios in my mind of making sure that I showed up looking like fabulous with, everything, hair, outfits, whatever, so that I would come in looking good so people wouldn't think like there was something wrong in my life, and I look back on that and I see how I was just wearing this like Jekyll and Hyde life, where I just didn't even show up as me because I was so worried people would judge me for not being able to have a child. Yeah.
Yes, I can relate to some of the things you're saying. Okay, so I know you said the COVID 2020 was that when you decided to start that's when you started life coaching?
I started life coaching in 2021, but in 2020 is when I looked in the mirror and said, like, something has got to change. Like,
okay.
And that's when I started working with a life coach for myself and started to see so many impacts on my life. And I didn't really know much about life coaching. It was just sort of one of those things that I think came to the forefront when people were at home and there was a lot of, changes in people's lives. And it just made such impact on me. And the woman I worked with was a weight loss coach because I had gained so much weight during IVF and then kind of gave up on my body after that and just quit working out, didn't care about what I was eating. So the weight continued to compound after my fertility treatments. And the things that she offered me to think about with myself and the story that I was believing and the things that I was never questioning, were those really true about me? And the assumptive language, I think that I just thought, like, if you don't have kids, you don't know love, you don't have purpose, like all these things that I just thought that's what you have to think when you don't have kids. And when I realized the power of thought work and questioning the beliefs that I was having around not being a mom, I was like, gosh, I need to figure out how to bring this into more of a specific environment for women who are childless after fertility treatments or childless by circumstance. And that's when I decided I went through a year-long coaching program and started my podcast in 2021. And then I went back and I got an advanced certification in grief and post-traumatic growth because I realized a lot of women who can't become moms or don't end up becoming moms are grieving this thing that no one ever really saw. It was just this dream and that felt so real to us. And there was no resources about how to deal with grief when you're losing a dream and you haven't lost a child or something tangible. But yeah, so that's sort of where the pandemic kind of opened my eyes to who I was losing myself, being without a child.
Yes. Okay. So that directed you to specifically focus on other women in a similar setting.
Correct.
And then your book, did that come about? Walk me through that process a little bit. Like, was that around 2021? You're like, I think I might do this. Or was that more of
That was 2023 when I decided, because I know there's not a lot of resources, at least from the women that I speak to. And I know for myself, I went to multiple clinics, not only in Chicago, but I went to Colorado and worked with different reproductive endocrinologists. And there's always like a plethora of resources when you're getting started, where to go for acupuncture, Reiki, massage, like all this extra stuff, books you can read, but there was never anything that was related to childlessness after fertility treatments. And so I thought, well, I'll give writing a book a try and see maybe if this could be something that they could add to a list of resources, because I think it's important for us to know that fertility treatments and motherhood aren't always a guarantee. And when no one brings it up, you just look at yourself and think like, I must be the only one, or it must not happen that often that they create anything around it to support women around this, this end game of childlessness.
Yes. I love that you have truly chosen to step into this, because our big thing with 1212 is not that we don't exist to walk you to getting a baby. We exist to help you understand who you are in Christ and navigate whatever your journey looks like. And it may not end in a baby. It may end in something different, birthing like a book or a ministry like what you've done. So I love that you stepped into where there was a lack, because it's scary. That's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's uncharted territory. And I feel like you've done it really graciously.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you acknowledging that. The things that have happened, like, I guess when I look at them on paper, I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I can't believe that I did that, but I know that I don't do this alone, and I think that's
so good.
That's the thing that is just so amazing to me, is how you can create so much from a story where you felt so alone and isolated. And I think all three of us here, have our own individual ways that we have done that. So and if I can do it, anyone can, because I'm no more talented or blessed than anyone else. I just think that you just have to be willing to serve, and then the rest comes your way.
Yes. Yeah. That submission to whatever the Lord's called you to do is not a comfortable place to sit, but when you really surrender and submit it, He can do amazing things with it. So
there was a time, if it's okay if I share, when we were going through fertility treatments, where I questioned my faith. We were always growing up very close to our church, and in our faith, I'm Christian Orthodox. So my family's originally from Serbia, so it's Eastern Orthodox, and our priests can marry. And we had a really lovely relationship with our priest, and his wife had experienced, they had 2 children, but they have experienced multiple pregnancy losses. And so when we were going through fertility treatments, we felt very safe talking to him about what we were going through, because I know, his wife, I could see the pain. And I think it's like the 2 of us sort of would bond in the choir loft. Like, we'd see each other's pain, but we never really talked about it. And there is this tree that grows in this monastery in Serbia that has borne this fruit, these raisins that they dry, that for centuries has helped women get pregnant. And when we were going through fertility treatments, he had the bishop of our diocese here in the U.S. get these grapes, aka raisins, they're dried, sent to us. And there's like this whole write-up about like how you have to use them, the schedule in which that you take them, the abstinence, and when, there's like this whole method of, making sure that these are used in the right way. And I had that envelope. I remember it was like a white envelope, and it had the grapes inside of them. And I sat on those for so long, and in the end decided not to take them. And it was a very hard thing to return them, because I was going to maybe, there's part of me that was like, okay, just act like you take them and don't tell anyone, because, but then I was like, well, that doesn't feel right. And then I thought, well, if I don't use them, like maybe there's somebody else, like these got sent away from Europe for me. And it's not right for me to like sit on them and not give them to somebody else, because it could be somebody else's miracle. But I remember the shame that I had, that I didn't believe in the faith enough to take them. And there was part of me that was like, well, if the science didn't work, how could this work? And I have chills just telling you that right now, that I believed in the science more than I believed in the miracle of faith. And I was very embarrassed to give them back to him. And I remember feeling like I was going to be judged or frowned upon. And he just never made me feel that way. And I just felt so grateful that he knew that I just needed to find my path on my own way. And there was never this forcing of it on me, or this guilt that was put upon me. But I've never really shared that with anyone. I don't know. There's only a few people that even know that we were given that opportunity and we said no to it. So thank you for letting me share that here, because I know you ladies might understand what that felt like.
Thank you for sharing that.
Truly. Yes. That is really, I think the enemy can try to use things like that and mess with your head, and kind of the emotions you were expressing, just like that you were trusting the science more. I think that is such an easy thought pattern and kind of like a trap to fall into. But I think the Lord knows your heart, and he knows that you trusted him regardless of taking the raisins or not taking them. I mean, I think you submitting in the way that you have just to share your story just shows such faith that exceeds the story you just told me, I think, because you have trusted him in the unseen, and you have surrendered your life's work is this beautiful story of restoring women that feel broken, and just showing them God's love for them, and their identity is not based in their womb or how, things like that. But thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful.
Thanks for letting me talk about that, because even all these years later, it brings up a lot of memories for me about how in question I was, and just sort of that place of feeling lost and just not knowing who I would be if I couldn't become a mom. I think that was like my biggest fear was, what will I have if not a child?
Yeah. Yeah. And look look how you've used that to just expand and grow. And you just made my brain go back to, I went to like I don't know what they're called, like a natural doctor before we did IVF.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, do you believe you can conceive without a doctor? Like, do you believe you're going to need medical help? And I was like, I do believe that. And he was like, well, then go pursue that. If you're not thinking what I'm doing is going to help you. But that just triggers my brain. Like, we feel like we hold so much, but really the Lord holds it, and he knows what we're going to do with our lack and what we're going to do with our need being fulfilled. So I think that dichotomy is a hard one to swallow, because you're like, this is hard to navigate. This is not an easy thing. But I think he sets things before us that he knows we're going to grow and flourish and touch many lives and reach out to women that need it, and step up where there's someone that hasn't stepped up before. So you've done that. And I think that's beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I always say my book is my second baby. I just said that to someone the other day.
Yes.
And I truly feel like my podcast is my first baby.
Oh,
and this book is like my second baby. And it's like you just nurture and grow and figure out a way to give that love and that encouragement and nourishing to something that means something
absolutely
to you.
Oh, yes. Well, Lana, tell us about your book.
Well, my book is called So Now What? And it's all about creating a life you love without the children you dreamed of. And I think it's, my story's woven in there. It's not necessarily like about me, but there's connection points of like things that I found, predicaments I found myself in, thoughts I was thinking about myself. And it weaves the reader through these connective points and then offers them writing prompts, things that they can do to sort of explore where that's coming up for them, ways that they can start thinking about the story that they're telling about themselves. There's a section in there that talks about handling baby shower invites and first birthday parties for your best friends or family's kids, Mother's Day, Christmas, all these things that we correlate motherhood and our lives, the milestones that we thought our lives were going to be able to touch on, and like, how can we still feel connected to those times of the year and find our own way and find our own path. And then just, for me, it was really important to talk about the things that people don't really talk about, right? The things that I found to be most unexpectedly hard, which was so much. Things like when people tell you, oh, pray harder or relax and it'll happen, and all these things that you feel invisible because people don't know like how hard you've prayed or how many times like you tried to relax and it just isn't easy, so there's parts about like things people say when you're childless and how do you respond to those things and have love for them because they're probably just trying to help you feel better, but they don't know that that's not the way to make you feel better. And it's to me, a beautiful, easy read. Like, I feel like it's something that you can read in an afternoon because it's just very feels like you're sitting on the sofa together. I do have a few cuss words in there, so nothing too bad, but just, I like to learn that because every once in a
Love
while,
that.
I have a little slip of the tongue.
enters your mind, especially with infertility. So you're not alone there, ma'am.
So I just feel like I wanted to make sure people don't think I'm a
I love you
fraud.
for saying that. That's amazing.
But it was just like, I want the person who reads it to feel like somebody finally recognizes and sees her story.
Yeah.
Because
Amen.
there's so much of us that I think we hide from other people because we're like, they just won't understand. And so we never really feel like we can let out the big, breath of air and just feel like we're back to getting it all off our chest. So
it's good.
It's called So Now What? Here's the copy. This is like an advanced copy, so it has this do not resale. But the imagery on here too, I thought was really fun because to me, I see a woman who's got a little bit of a barren part here, this little pink section here. And then it's also an upside down question mark.
Yes.
Like that.
So cool.
And then a path leading up to the sun. And that was sort of what I wanted readers to maybe find whatever they see in there. Like, those are kind of the three things that I had in mind when I had the cover designed. But yeah, it's 225 pages, so not too long.
Okay.
And it's available on Amazon and hopefully bookstores. We'll be carrying it on the shelves. I'm working on all that right now.
Okay. Love it. Yeah, we definitely will put that in the show notes for everybody so they can connect with you. But really quickly, tell us about Others Day and then how everybody can connect with you online.
Yeah, well, in 2022, I remember I was in Target and it was April and all the signs were up with Mother's Day and, get your cards, all the Mother's Day ideas. And although I have a mom that I'm very close with and I love to celebrate Mother's Day with her, I just felt like there was this aching part of me that was like, I'll never know what that feels like to really have a Mother's Day be about me. So I started a meetup group. I came home and I remember I got on Meetup and I call it Childless and Child-Free Women. And I invited people to come to a brunch on the Saturday before Mother's Day, and like 18 people RSVP'd. So I was like, oh, okay, like this is great. And it was very uplifting. It wasn't like come and let's all be sad together. It was, colorful clothing. I remember it just being like feeling like really vibrant, and I had a woman cater it, and it was really a high energy event. And so now this is going to be our 4th year doing it, and each year it continues to grow in the amount of people. And it's always in Chicago the day before Mother's Day. People have flown in from across the United States, Puerto Rico. I've had people from Florida, Texas, Tennessee, like all over. And it just blows my mind. People that I'm connected to on social media. And it is just a really beautiful opportunity to recognize who we are as contributors in the world and to find connection with other women who are seeking that same type of connection. And Mother's Day might be really hard, and you might find like dreading it is like something that you're used to feeling. And I've had so many people tell me that have attended the brunch that because they attended like that day before Mother's Day, they just didn't even remember that it was Mother's Day the next day. And that's really my goal, is to help women feel like they can celebrate themselves and not have to live in sadness because of something that they don't have.
Amen. Yes.
It's amazing. I love that.
So
you're doing amazing things.
Yes. It really is. Yeah.
LanaManikowski.com/Others Day. I have discounted rates at hotel, area in the area near where the event is. It's on the Saturday before Mother's Day, May 10th this year in 2025. So I know it's going to continue to grow. I've been on the national news, primetime news talking about it. And people I think are recognizing that Mother's Day is not a perfect holiday for everyone.
Yes.
For sure. For sure.
Thank
That's
you.
so awesome.
I know. Lana, we are cheering you on.
Thank you.
And so we are, like Holly said earlier, we are so proud of you. And then just know that this conversation, I know it's going to bless someone, just like really walking through such a dark time. And so thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us and being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.